Sometimes, the worst thing isn't being treated unfairly. It's when the whole world watches you suffer in silence. And no one speaks up. Have you ever wondered, what would happen if an ordinary person, no power, no status, was bullied right in the middle of a crowd? And everyone turned a blind eye? In today's story, a young waitress experienced exactly that. And what will surprise you even more, is who stood up for her. This isn't just a story about justice. It's a reminder. We all have the power to be a small light in someone else's darkness. On a lively Friday night in the heart of Los Angeles, as warm jazz melodies filled the elegant restaurant, the Harbor, no one noticed the man in a plain black t-shirt and baseball cap walking through the door. No manager greeted him. No staff recognized him. And that was exactly how he wanted it. Few people knew that this man wasn't just an ordinary customer. He was the owner of the Harbor hotel chain, an empire of over 80 locations across California. And this very restaurant was part of that empire. But tonight, he wasn't here to dine. He was here to listen. To look deeper into what revenue reports could never reveal. Because after nearly 2 decades in business, he'd learned one undeniable truth. Numbers can look good, but people tell the real story. Inside, everything seemed to be running smoothly. Warm golden lights, the gentle clinking of cutlery, guests laughing and chatting in a setting that was both luxurious and welcoming. But his steps didn't slow down. He wasn't here to evaluate the food. Nor was he here to check table arrangements. He was looking for something that every report avoids. The truth hidden behind forced smiles and averted eyes. And then, he felt it. Something tight in the chest. A chill down the spine. A quiet tension creeping in from somewhere beyond the kitchen door. Just minutes after stepping inside, he heard something no leader ever wants to hear. A cry. Soft, but heartbreakingly real. That sound, the fragile, choking sound of someone holding back everything they had left, seemed to come from a small break room tucked behind the kitchen. The man in the black t-shirt stopped. He didn't rush, but every sense in him was alert. That wasn't the sigh of someone tired from a long shift. It was a sob, the kind of sob that comes from someone trying desperately not to fall apart. He stepped closer, quietly, pressing himself against the wall just outside the door, left slightly ajar. Just enough for him to see through the narrow gap. In the dim light of the cramped break room, he saw something that made his chest tighten. A young girl, barely 20, in a server's uniform, so thin that her sleeves barely held to her arms, was leaning against a metal cabinet, gripping the edge of a stainless steel table with both hands, as if letting go would cause her whole body to collapse. Her hair was tied hastily. A faint trail of dried tears marked her collar. Her face was red, and her lips trembled as she tried to swallow every sob back down into her stomach. Beside her stood another young employee, probably on the same shift, whispering softly, "You can't let him control you like this. You don't belong to him." The girl didn't reply. She only shook her head. I don't have a choice. He said if I say no again, I'll lose my job. And I need the money. I can't go home empty-handed. The man outside clenched the water glass in his hand. That sentence. He knew it too well. Chillingly well. Because he had seen this before. Not once, but hundreds of times. In offices, restaurants, hotels, anywhere power exists without accountability. Where titles are given, but character is absent. That girl, small, obedient, just trying to do her job, was being cornered. Not because of performance, but because she was being exploited. Not with words, but with silence, with stares, with invisible threats from someone hiding behind the mask of a manager. He turned away slowly, concealing eyes that had now turned darker than usual. Not every restaurant needs the perfect dinner. Some places need a reckoning. He stood there, back straight, arms crossed, eyes scanning the room like a hawk circling an airport terminal. His navy blue shirt was crisply ironed, sleeves buttoned tightly, and a metallic watch shimmered under the warm golden lights. That man, Rick Mallory, the restaurant manager, looked like he'd walked straight out of a LinkedIn profile photo. But what made people uncomfortable wasn't his appearance. It was the way he stood, arrogant, detached, fully aware that he held the reins. As the real protagonist, the hotel chain owner and founder of this very restaurant, slowly made his way toward the service counter. Each step quiet but weighted. His eyes didn't leave the young man who had just stepped out of the break room. His name was Jay. His hands trembled slightly as he arranged the silverware. He glanced nervously at Mallory, then lowered his head, as if avoiding something forbidden. "Hi there. Mind if I borrow a pen?" Jay froze, looked up. There was something about the man's face, unfamiliar yet oddly reassuring. Yes, of course. I'll grab one." Jay handed over the pen. But the man didn't leave. He didn't write anything either. "The girl in the break room, she looks unwell." Jay instinctively took a step back, clutching the order pad tighter. His heart raced. This man knew. But how? And who was he? "She's just stressed. It's nothing, sir." Jay spoke quickly, eyes downcast, as if trying to convince himself more than the other man. The stranger tilted his head slightly, his gaze sharp, cutting through the young server's fear like an X-ray. "Are you sure it's not because of the manager?" Jay didn't answer, but the way his lips pressed together, and the glance he shot, ever so briefly, toward Rick Mallory, who still stood like he sensed a shift in the air, said everything. And just then, a blue-shirted figure glided toward them, composed, commanding, cold, like a man who could smell defiance from a mile away. "Is there a problem here?" Rick asked, his voice syrupy smooth, carrying the thin blade of passive aggression. Jay immediately looked down. No, nothing. Just giving a pen to a guest." He stammered. The man turned, faced Rick Mallory, for the first time. Rick smiled. That trained, controlled smile worn by men used to managing narratives. "I'm Rick, the evening floor manager. Anything I can assist you with?" "Just a pen," the man replied calmly, offering a polite smile, then turned to Jay. "And a short conversation." Rick gave a dry laugh and patted Jay's shoulder. "Just enough to seem friendly. Just enough to intimidate. Let's stay focused on our work. Shall we?" Jay nodded, quickly retreating toward the kitchen, leaving behind a space thick with tension between the two men. Only, Rick had no idea. He had just crossed paths with the last man he should have underestimated. "Very good, Rick," the man said slowly. "I believe you and I are going to have an unforgettable conversation tonight." Rick raised an eyebrow, but said nothing. Seconds later, the man set the pen down on the counter, pulled out a small gold-embossed card. Not large, but enough to silence an entire room. Logo: Sable Group International. Title: CEO, Chairman, Global Hospitality Group. Name: Lucas Reed. Her name was Emma, 19 years old, brown eyes, neatly tied hair, and a uniform that hung a bit too loosely on her small frame. She was the first to arrive and the last to leave the restaurant each shift. The one who never complained, who never refused a difficult customer, and yet, the one no one ever listened to. Until today. Emma stood at the order counter, her eyes glazed as she stared intently at the computer, her hands trembling slightly as she entered orders. No one noticed, but the chairman, Lucas Reed, did. The girl tried to avoid the gaze of Rick Mallory, the night shift manager, but she couldn't escape it. He walked by behind her, drawing near, whispering just loud enough for her to hear. "After your shift, stay behind, and you still owe me a thank you, remember?" Without needing to look back, Emma knew he was smirking. That familiar, toxic smile implied that all choices rested in his hands, and that she had only one option: to remain silent. And for countless nights, Emma had chosen silence. But tonight, everything had changed. Lucas approached, nodding gently to a few guests before stopping at the counter. "You must be Emma, right?" She looked up, her eyes filled with fear. "Why, yes. How can I help you?" "I think it's time to help you." Emma blinked. She didn't understand, didn't dare to understand, yet the man's composed, steady gaze made the fortress around her heart tremble. "I've heard what's been happening. You don't have to suffer any longer." Those simple words, for Emma, were like a thawing stream breaking through the accumulated ice in her heart. She fell silent, but her lips began to quiver. Her eyes grew red. Rick Mallory, standing nearby, immediately interjected with a smirk. "Lucas, perhaps you're mistaken. This girl is just a bit sensitive. I've got employee management under control." Lucas didn't turn toward him. He kept his eyes on Emma. "Last night, you stayed alone with him, didn't you?" Emma nodded, slowly, almost reflexively. Rick's eyes widened. "Hey, I won't." "Silence," Lucas said for the first time, curtly, making the entire space feel as if it had frozen. Emma stood there, stunned. The kitchen staff, the bartender, the nearby customers, all paused. Lucas pulled out his phone and played a recording. Emma's trembling, halting voice echoed. "If you don't comply, he said he'd change my shift to the day shift and cut my tip. And if you listen, then." Rick's voice resounded, cold, nonchalant, from some previous night. "Just a dinner. You know I can help with that." The room fell silent. Emma nearly collapsed. Lucas placed the phone down, looked up, and fixed his gaze on Rick Mallory. "This is my restaurant. This girl is my employee. And you, from now on, are no longer a part of this place." Rick stood speechless. He intended to argue, but Lucas's eyes and the encompassing silence gave him no chance. Emma stood there, covering her mouth with her hand. Tears fell, but they were no longer tears of fear. They were of liberation. They were of justice. For the first time, she was seen. She was heard. Lucas turned to her and spoke gently. "You are no longer alone." And in that very moment, Emma stood tall. She lifted her head, and for the first time in a year of work, she smiled. There are battles that don't begin with bombs or blazing fists, but with a stifled sob in a break room, with averted eyes after a long shift, with a quiet boss who listens and chooses to stand on the side of what's right. Emma was not a hero. She had no power, no voice. She couldn't even look someone in the eye when called into the manager's office. But she had something many have lost. A fragile belief that kindness still has a place in this world. And because of someone like Lucas, a man willing to take off the title of boss, to step into the darkness in search of the light, that belief wasn't crushed. Maybe you're not the owner of a restaurant. You don't run a hotel empire. You can't fire a Rick Mallory. But you can be the one who speaks up. You can be the one who asks, "Hey, are you okay? Is there anything I can do to help?" You can be the one who doesn't look away when injustice happens. Because sometimes, all it takes is one voice to make a bully back down, and one hand reaching out to lift someone back up when they're falling. Clapperboard if you've ever been an Emma. If you've endured, been dismissed, felt afraid, know this: you are not alone. Clapperboard and if you've ever seen an Emma. Don't turn away. Don't let her voice vanish into silence. Yellow circle comment if this story touched you. Repeat button share if you believe kindness and justice deserve to be seen. Push pin and don't forget to subscribe for more stories told from the heart, where truth finds a voice. Because the world doesn't need more people who are powerful. It needs more people who dare to be kind.